Hey, yo, it's Guido coming at you with a Tactics Talk. Welcome back. On this episode, I've got a two-pack. These are two losses sent in by two different players who asked me, hey, I had a pretty good game. What could I have done better? And that's a great question to ask. So I decided I was going to do these both as a two-pack before I even looked at them, because I figured there'd be some themes or commonalities amongst the two, and there sure were. So we're going to talk a little bit here about some of the basics of this game, the very basics. And I'm not talking the mechanics, I'm talking the basics of how this game is won. And one of the biggest ones is positioning. So initially we have Tonster 181 in his M4A1 Rev, and he's top tier. In the next game we're actually going to show a bottom tier, which is kind of an interesting juxtaposition. We'll discuss both as we go. He's on Abbey, spawned into the north, top tier in a 357, which should be a great setup, especially for a Rev who's only got a Centurion and probably what's going to be a camping ISU. There are some artillery to deal with right here, but other than that, he's fairly soft to artillery. He should have a very good time. Unfortunately, what Tonster does is immediately he positions to the middle. So I'm going to harp on this a bit, and we're going to discuss it as we go. We'll let this begin, and he'll be firing away as I talk about this. But the way this game is won is positioning. You go to one flank, there's usually a critical one, or one that is the critical terrain, and you win that flank, and then you either flex back to your cap to defend it or kill whatever enemy tanks are pushing in, or if you're winning on every flank, you push into their cap. Or you flex to the middle of the map, but the point is you win a flank and you flex to where it's required depending on what's going on with the game. Or if you're losing a flank, you try to get out of that flank, move to where you're winning, or fall back and try to turn a loss into a win. Those are very big generalities. In order to do that, you've got to have good positioning. You've got to go to the right place. So if I am a 357 top tier tank, and I am looking at this setup right here, I go to either, and I would say the critical terrain is the west side, and I fight where the 3601 is, the 3485, where the majority of my tanks went, by the way. There is a dark horse contender of going on the east side, which I do not recommend, because you get things like ISUs, which you just saw starting to trundle up there, sitting back in bushes and wrecking you when you attempt to get forward. The east does need to be watched, but the way this map is usually won, the meta on this map, is to win the east, hold the 8 line, make sure they don't completely own the middle, and then win over on the west. Now, when I say don't make sure they don't completely own the middle, you might say, well, Tonster's making sure they don't own the middle. Well, that needs to be some of your lower tier tanks. And you can, in fact, leave the middle alone, as long as you've got some guys sitting on the back like a prototype, like you've got sitting back there. Or, ideally, he would have had a couple friends go up there, and it looks like he's lost a couple. But Tonster has spent this whole time while I'm talking fighting a tier 7 or a tier 6, I guess, 2 tier 6s, and getting kind of wrecked by 2 guys running around, hitting him in multiple directions right there. Meanwhile, his push over on the west, which is the most important flank, is getting torn up pretty good. Now, it looks pretty even. You might say, well, Guido, it looks like we're doing all right. He's dealt with the middle. The guys are fine over on the west right now, but let's go ahead and watch how this thing develops. Also, let's say you decided to go to the middle, Tonster, like you did. Where do you go now? You won the middle, so that flank is sorted out. Now you've got a problem, obviously, over on the east. So it's time to get over there and help them. You've got a prototype. He's full hit points, and he's being pushed by 3 tanks over there. He's probably going to do his best to deal with them, but you're going to hang out here in the middle and basically leave him out to dry. There's nobody over in the west sitting up on the sniper hills, so you should be able to move across there and help this poor T-28. There's all 4 of the guys that are pushing on him. Artillery is certainly an issue, but while you sit back here looking for little 1-pixel shots, there goes the prototype completely getting destroyed. Your tier 8 tank is now dead, and you are just now getting a shot in to try to help him. So win a flank and go somewhere more useful, winning the flank and sitting in one spot. And I can tell by the way you're playing here, you're very comfortable playing in this spot. It looks like you know a lot about it. I've seen you, we'll watch this as well. You're going to go to multiple places I didn't even really know were there. And I'm going to tell you one of the reasons I don't really know they're there is they're fairly useless. You're having a good game. This looks like it's a comeback in the making. And I like the way that you are tactically moving your tank around. I like your map knowledge of this area. But your initial positioning and the follow-on were atrocious, to be quite honest. You needed to be over on the west side. Now, let's say you went to the west side. with all those tanks. Look how many are still alive. The E-25, and that's it. They actually won over there. Imagine your 390 Alpha Tier 8 gun had been over there. You guys wax their west side, and then flex back and are able to deal with the Centurion and ISU. You've only killed one tank, and you've dealt with a couple Tier 6s. So the more important flank was the west, where you could have kept some of your tanks alive by helping them out. Say that you didn't, you went to the middle as you did, you had an opportunity to save your prototype, or at least put more hit points of damage on the guys that were pushing the prototype, but you stayed in the middle, and he died as well. And now we're just in comeback mode. We're attempting to win a 1v7 or 8, or whatever the case was. And this actually works out pretty well for you. You do a really nice job. Like I said, you've got a good knowledge of this part of the map. You fight this tank very well, and you come close, but no cigar. So I'm going to speed this up as we go. Just to recap, initial positioning was very poor. I would not have gone where you went. You needed to go over to the west side, help them win that flank, help some of your hit points and tanks survive, so that at this part of the game, you've still got a couple allies and you own the west side. As of right now, you own no flanks. There's an argument to be made you own the middle, but who cares? Doesn't matter, because you're surrounded on all sides and every one of your friends is dead at this point. And I would have definitely tried to help that prototype much more than sit in the middle right there. So we're going to use this bush a little bit. We're going to go ahead and speed up. Not much happens here. And this gets a lot closer than I thought. We see two guys move across the middle. It's an arty. The arties are actually moving around, which is quite interesting. We get a guy up on the cap. Ends up being the Hellcat who's trying to cap out. Tonster hangs out here for a bit, starts to move around looking for a better look at the cap. He's going to get it as he comes in here. Knocks a tree down. We're kind of taking a look. All right, where are you, Hellcat? There he is. Now we're going to take a shot on the Hellcat. And we're going to turn our back armor, take a hit. I would have backed out, put my front armor to him, and hoped that I got a bounce. And as soon as he fired, I would have stopped right there, zoomed in, aimed in on that guy, and killed him off. Because what's going to happen is you're just going to run away. There's an artillery shot, and maybe that was actually a better move on your part. The artillery did miss you right there. And that may have been what was in your mind, so good on you. My aggression would have made me stand in and make sure I killed the Hellcat. This is fantastic. We get a snapshot on that guy. You got a good knowledge, again, of the map. We come up here, just so everybody knows there is an exit right here that you can go through. He comes around this way. Try not to knock down trees. That's just letting people know where you are if they're paying attention. And we find somebody sitting over here. That is the 01. He didn't see you. I would have expected him not to. If I may have stayed down there and shot him, but as it is, you're careful and you move around and find him and take him down anyway. He's not paying very good attention to what's going on. Come around here. He's sort of looking, hey, what's going on? Down he goes. Nice shot. And now we are getting hunted by the artillery, and we have the ISU that's going to show up. And we've got it down to 4v1. This is pretty impressive so far. He takes a splash, gets a chunk of you. Moving up. Holy cow, very lucky. Down goes the 3001. Get a lucky bounce from the ISU. Now the ISU is fired. What I'd have done as soon as I killed the 3001 is I'd have gone to that little opening right there. I'd have pressed 5 to go ahead and get rid of the stun so I could get my reload faster, and I think I would have out-reloaded this ISU, or I would have stopped right there. And we've already gone past it, but you had a shot right through there, which would have made his shot difficult on you and yours easy on him. I may have tried that as well. You might feel like he's inside your reload, which he may be about right now. But this is kind of the point in the game where you take those chances, because you really need to get this ISU out. And now we're going to get chased around a little bit. That's very dangerous. You kind of put yourself in a position to be shot by the ISU. You're going to get spotted right here. And I'm surprised he didn't actually take a shot through one of these little pixels here and try to get you. Looks like you're looking for that shot and then decide better of it. Now that he's fired, definitely come in here and try to get him, but he's going to back up around that corner. Or no, he doesn't even move. Look at that. And you just missed. That's unfortunate. I might have tried to zoom in a little bit better or fine-tune that shot. And we're going to back up, back up, back up. ISU is still sitting down there, and we've got 2 artillery. Looks like you're looking for them. Again, good knowledge of this area of the map, using bushes, trying to hide as much as possible. This gets very interesting right here because we get the artillery who's just coming at us. So we wait for him. A shot on him, but not enough to kill him. Leaves 4 hit points. That's very unfortunate because we find the M12. We charge the M12. He's going to put a shot on us. Doesn't quite kill us. We bounce the M12. That's a bummer. Doesn't matter though because the 40-43 is reloaded and he's going to actually zap you right there. Looks like a direct hit, but any kind of splash would have taken him out. 4,000 damage, 5 kills, and a valiant effort at the end. But the thing about it is, if you had gone over to the west, helped your team, preserved some of your team's tanks and hit points, it may not have ever got to this point, or you may have had a couple helpers to actually pull this one out. You did a really nice job of attempting to do it, but I would say that your initial positioning really let you down on this map, and it goes back to how this game is won. Early damage, starting the snowball, removing enemy guns from the important terrain, and then making decisions from there, going to a collapsed flank, pushing if you can, if you're winning in every direction, or getting out of a bad situation and preserving your tank and hit points to fight somewhere else, are all big things that you need to learn. You went to one spot, hung out nearly the whole game, made a valiant effort of trying to come back, but you'd already sacrificed all your team's hit points to do so, so you were well behind the power curve when you got there. Let's go to the second example, which has very similar aspects to it. Second example here, we have Old Wolf, and he is actually bottom tier on this one on Malinovka, and he's in his FV 4502, which he does pretty good in. I believe this is his 1 mark game right here. And he has spawned into the west side. He's headed up towards the hill. Initially, I thought he was going to go up the hill, and then he's going to pause and hang out in the forest. And this is going to be another problem of positioning. Now, you might say, all right, Guido, I'm bottom tier. I can't really make that big of a difference positioning-wise, but that's just simply untrue. When you see all these guys headed up the hill, all the guys being your green friends zinging up the hill, that's perfect for a tier 8 medium like the Centurion with a good turret to head up there with them, because it is a fantastic hold down fighting spot up there. There's only 1 artillery, so that's nice. They're probably not going to be shooting at you unless you're the only thing lit. And you can be great for support up there. You can track things. You're a medium with pretty good spotting. You can spot things. You can tell that your team's already won the top. So your initial position was to hang out here, probably thinking I'm low tier, I don't want to get out in the front, that kind of thing. But your team pushed up to the critical terrain and they actually took it. So now you need to start thinking about, what's my next move? All right, fine, you decided to hang back, you don't want to get out front because you're low tier, got it. People get punished pretty hard for that. But when you look at the minimap now, it's time to move. They've proven they're not going to push up the hill, and if you're not going to go push up the hill, then let's go fight somewhere else. Let's get our gun in the game. Part of the positioning discussion in this game, and from the last video where I said you go to a critical spot, you start sending rounds down range, you start removing hit points and guns from the enemy, that's how you win, is the fact that you have to do that bottom tier as well. You've got to find a position where you can become useful and you're doing something in the game. And frankly, right now, you're not being very useful to your team at all. You're right next to the artillery. Look at your draw distance. You're not even going to draw anything right now that's red. There's no way, maybe there's a small way somebody would come up the middle here, but you can't hit them anyway because you're down low below the train. So this position is frankly 100% useless to your team. And I know that sounds kind of harsh, but it really is. The honest truth is you right now are completely useless to the team. You're not doing any spotting. You're not a gun in the game. You can't track anybody. Zero. There's no use to be in that spot right there. Nobody's coming through there. So now we start to move. That's good. Let's find a new spot. And you're going to go to a spot that I think is probably a place you're comfortable fighting at because it looks like you know how to use it. And that's going to be in this lower spot here. This is another position that players like to go to who don't want to be aggressive and get out front. They're going to camp in these bushes and around these hills. There's some hold down spots. There's bushes like that right there. Let's talk a little bit for you. We'll get off the macro stuff about positioning and things like that. Let's talk a little bit for you about auto aim use. Right now you're zoomed in, but we're going to watch this. You really rely on auto aim, which I think more than anyone I've ever seen, to be quite honest. And rarely are you zooming in, and I'll talk about it as we go. Some of the benefits of zooming in and using your sniper mode as opposed to just auto aiming. There's a lot of benefits that you might not think about other than just fine-tuning your shots. So when we get there, we'll start talking about it. Back to positioning now. Your team has kind of given up the cap area, and I will give you that this position is much more useful than the first one you went to. But I will say that it is not very much more useful. The Progetto is already here. You've got a 704 and a 120 watching the cap. So what exactly you're going to accomplish here is not sure. You just shot into their sniper position. That is one of the things that this position is helpful for. You can also kind of control anything coming up in the middle. But as early in the game as it is right now, more than likely, you're not going to have anything zinging right up the middle. Let's take a look at what we see here. We're going to hold down, kind of peeking up and over. If I was going to peek right there, I certainly would not do it out in the open. I would have done it behind this bush. You can do the exact same thing you're doing right here by coming up behind this bush and not exposing yourself. It may be that you're trying to stop yourself from being spotted from this way, but there's enough trees and things there. And if I'm coming up and over this, I'm more worried about what I'm going to find down here than what might snipe me from way over in this distance. So be careful about coming up and over in the open. You find this 12T. I have no idea how you knew he was coming. Maybe it was a premonition. And you bounce a WT, and now we've got a Scorpion G. All right, Scorpion G just fired. Let's talk about fighting our tank. Scorpion G just fired. Stop right now. Zoom in on this guy. You're loaded, and take that shot. What we're going to do is back, and then we futz around with auto aim, and that takes a while, and then we eventually maybe take a shot, but no, he's not. All right, so if I zoom in, where is he? If I zoom in, then I can tell what's, unfortunately I can't do it because of the way the reload, or the way the replay does, I don't have a highlight. But if you zoom in, you can at least look at him and go, oh, he's behind the train. I don't have a shot. And then I can go, all right, what else do I have? Oh, what about this guy? Maybe I have a shot on this guy over here. I'll zing around, look for him. All right. This is looking for shots 101. There you go. You do shift it over. But without zooming in, you don't have a good idea. There's a conqueror. There's not a lot you're going to do about that. And we back up. We got a T-28. We're going to talk a little bit more about the auto aim thing here as soon as I see the example as it comes up. Also, pay attention to your dead crew. You're running right now with a dead driver. This goes on, I think, for the rest of the game. So you've got to pay attention to things like that. All right, here's another great example. You've got this guy auto-aimed, and you're crawling up and over. All right, so here we go, here we go, here we go. Right now, the reason that that thing is stuck to the ground is that you don't have a highlight on him. You probably know that because it looks like you use auto-aim quite a bit. As soon as it comes up and over, though, I can look at this and go, you know what? I actually came up higher than I really needed to be right here. I have now exposed myself to other shots. Granted, you are not spotted at the moment, but I've come up higher than I need to be. Why? Because if I zoom in, I can actually see him, and I would rather actually be back down that hill a little bit to where my pipper is only barely above the ground. All right. If you want to bring his whole tank into view, that will help from shooting straight into the ground. That is important. But right now, you're well up and over than where you need to be. And you even go a little bit further, and we wait and then we fire. The other thing about auto-aiming like that is, and I don't want to go back to it, but unless you zoom in, it aims center of mass. Unless you zoom in, you don't know what you're really aiming at. You're aiming at center of mass, but he may be slightly angled. You may be aiming right at the corner of the tank. And a little shift to the left or a little shift to the right would make a better shot into a flat plate of either his rear end or maybe his side, depending on what the angle is that he's given us. You're giving up a lot of information that you could have. If you would just zoom in a little bit, take a look. So those are a couple of things with auto-aiming that you're going to lose. Fine-tuning shots and minimizing the exposure of your tank, which is going to preserve some of your HP. So now we got this guy. Let me shoot at him. The same thing really applies right here. Unless you zoom in, you don't know what he's doing. The other piece of very important information when you're zooming in is, what is he looking at? Am I staring straight down his gun? Well, maybe he sees me. At the very least, he's pointing in my direction because he just got hit by me. If he does see me, he's going to have a better shot. Say that guy's turret was pointed over here. One of our guys, maybe the 704, was up over here, and his turret's pointed that direction. I don't have to move around or anything. I'm just going to wait for the reload. If I see his turret start to move towards me, then I'm going to try to get some cover. But right now, it looks like he's shooting at me. So we're going to back up, back up, back up. And we actually get hit, but we bounce. Now, when you backed up, you actually exposed yourself more by going up a back slope. Your best bet was actually to tuck up here into this as low as you can get with a little bit to the left here to get some of that rising terrain between you and him so that only your turret is shown. As it was, you back up and show a good amount of your hole right there. If you go ahead and zoom in, it's hard to see because of all the explosion, but there's the bottom of there's the ground right there, and look at all this space between that and the ground, and that is all space where you are exposed. And another shot that bounced. I mean, just very lucky right there. But that's the great part about the turret on that tank. At least you were angling there as well. So again, the zoom in thing is important here. You got this auto aim, but right now, what you want to know is how much do I have to come up and over this ground? And as it is, we just kind of and that's way more than we wanted to do. Look how much is exposed. You can tell by the distance from the ground there to where the target is. All that space is exposure of your tank. If you're aiming like right there, right at the edge of the ground, then you've exposed as little of your tank as possible. But if you come up that high, that's all exposure of your tank. That distance right there, angular distance, translates into how much of your tank below your gun line is actually being exposed. I would have taken a blind shot right there. I think you do actually here. Yeah, there you go. I would have taken it earlier when it was a more sort of looking for a more accurate fire solution, I guess. He's had less time to move around. So let's go back to the macro positioning thing once again. Where would I have gone with the 4502? I'd have been up top helping these guys try to push down into the enemy. We took the critical terrain. What you've done over here, you've managed 1,300 and you've damaged 810. But I don't think any of this would have mattered too much if they'd have been able to drive around down here. I really don't. I think it would have been more important to be up top in the critical terrain, helping them win and get off that hill as soon as possible. These two TDs would have dealt with whatever came in. It was very highly unlikely anything would have pushed in, especially a 12T, a Scorpion G, and a WT. They were going to have a hard time pushing in on that WZ and object without dying. So we're farming a little damage. Here's another great example. You finally zoom in, and that's one of those places where it is good. There it is. He's below the train right there. I had to kind of search around to find him. Your auto aim would have been going center of mass, and you never got a shot. Looks like you figured that out. And you do zoom in on occasion. You do zoom in on occasion. So you understand the concept. It's just that I think you really over-rely on the auto aim. So here we got an ISU. This is another great example right here. I'd have zoomed in here for a number of reasons. Number one, I'd have probably aimed about here and tried to track him. Try to take out that sprocket, drop a track, and trap him out in the middle. As it is, we're just going to auto aim. Oh, there we go. We actually zoom in. So we get a little bit center of mass. Another shot into there. I would have probably taken another blind shot in there as well. The other option you had was to sneak forward a little bit more to about right here. Use these trees, get yourself a little closer to him, and maybe light him up again. As well as a blind shot opportunity in there. Just take one and see if you can't hit him again. Looks like maybe that's what you're thinking. There you go. So you got there in a roundabout way, and all of a sudden we find this 430. Here's another great example of the thing. I know I'm beating this horse to death, but look at all the exposure you have. He's coming up and out. If I saw this, I'd have zoomed in immediately, and I'd have gone right for that front track, front sprocket, because I'd love to stick him down in that water and drown him. And if he fixed it, my second shot would have been right into the same place, and maybe we drown this guy and he never gets out of the water. But as it is, we're going to, as soon as I get this thing going. What's happening? There we go. We're going to auto aim, kind of shoot into his side. Auto aim against heavily armored things like 430s. He's turned his armor towards us now, and that's hard to tell. I sort of saw him move, and there you go. But now you're just shooting right into the top plate. You'd have wanted to go towards the bottom plate if you had any prayer of even pinning that guy at this range. The other thing is, you're so exposed right here. After that first shot, I'd have been backing off, assuming that that close of a shot would have lit me up, which it absolutely did. And you've got an ISU over there. That's something else to think about. And if he can swing around and put a shot on you, he's going to take you down. Plus, the artillery knows where. There's the ISU. He got you. He's firing HE. So that's good for you. Another shot. GC comes in. And you just kind of stood in a spot that you were spotted in that was just not a great idea. That was not a great trade right in there. So bush use is probably something to think about. Now, you know the 140's there. This one flummoxed me a little bit. I was a little bit unsure why you would come around in the open when you've got these great bushes right here to come up and take a look. fantastic depression on the 4202, and you might find that guy trolling around in there. As it is, he sees you first because he's in a bush, and he's able to put a shot on you. Had you come up in those bushes right there, more than likely you don't eat that shot. And unfortunately, there's artillery in the game. And boom. So Conqueror takes you down. All right, so for both of these, really, it comes down to positioning decisions. Both of you fight your tank pretty well. In the case of Old Wolf, I just take a look at a bit of your mechanics on your zooming and your use of auto aim and how you expose your tank a little bit more than you probably should have. But my biggest comment on both of these is, had you gone to the critical terrain, you probably would have helped your team go a lot further towards winning. I definitely believe that on both of these. Where you both chose to fight, you did well with your tanks, so I'm not taking any of that away from you. But you have to consider, right, how do I win this game? I win this game by going to the critical terrain, I win that flank, and I move on from there. Whether I got to go back or forward depends on what's going on with the rest of the game. If I decide to go to the secondary flank, the same thing applies. Win or lose, I either go back or go forward, depending, or flex across the map, depending on what happens. But if I just go to one spot, either in the back or to the tertiary spot, which is basically what you both chose, then I am wholly and utterly dependent on what my team does. And if they win, then I can pick up some garbage damage. And if they lose, then I can say it's not my fault. No, that's not what I mean. If they lose, partly it's because I wasn't there to help put the damage at the important spot. All right, guys. I hope this helps with you right there. Not beating up on you necessarily. I'm just telling you how it is with this game. You can play that way, and you can actually play pretty well the way you guys did. You can go, you can farm some damage from certain spots. You can actually influence your win rate by doing that, but I would say that kind of positioning and gameplay is not going to get you anywhere better than about a 53% win rate. That's about the ceiling of that kind of positioning and gameplay decision making. You can get very good at it, but I don't think you're ever going to get much more than about a 53% win rate out of something like that. Why? Because you're not actively going to the important spots and influencing the battle. All right, that's enough. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for sending those in, guys. I do appreciate it because it was a great discussion on that. Any comments down below, go ahead and throw them down there because I think this will spur a lot of discussion. See ya.